Welcome to Credentialing Chronicles, where we spill the doctor tea hotter than your morning coffee.
And give you the insider scoop in the wild world of credentialing, provider drama, and everything they don't teach you in med school.
I'm Shannon, and she's Nylene, two credentialing pros with front row seats to all the chaos.
From fraud scandals to burnout breakdowns and why your favorite surgeon might actually be banned from 5 hospitals.
We got the gossip and the practical advice to keep you out of trouble and ahead of the game.
So grab your coffee, your compliance checklist, and maybe a lawyer, and let's get into it.
Hey, welcome back to Credentialing Chronicles, your behind-the-scenes look at what really happens in the world of credentialing, compliance, and healthcare oversight. I'm Shannon here with my co-host, Nylene.
Hey, Shannon. So today's episode is going to be a little wild. We're talking about providers who don't disclose issues. And even worse, that the medical boards don't even bother investigating, which I know we've talked about, but anyway.
We're beating it, but we need to talk about it because these things are unbelievable and they're real. That's the crazy part, Nylene, right? I mean, imagine a surgeon botching dozens of surgeries, but still being hired. Or a doctor with a drug addiction, treating patients like nothing happened. Or maybe even a psychiatrist who preys on patients and just moves from hospital to hospital with no consequences.
Horrible.
Exactly. Well, hold on. Let me at first do our disclaimer. As always, the cases we will be sharing with you are all available through public court documents. We promise we are not sharing any privileged or private information. We have personally never credentialed these practitioners. We will not release the names of the practitioners, but we will give you all those other juicy details. Take it away, Nylene.
All right. Well, one of the first things we want to make sure everybody knows is that this is actually happening every single day. And we're going to break it all down. We're going to start with when providers hide their past.
So let's start with how providers hide red flags, you mean, in the first place? Is that what you're kind of talking about?
Yes. So we're going to start with basically what are kind of some of the things that they hide, right? So when they, for example, when they apply for a new job, do they self-report or not? They need to talk about if they have a malpractice case, if they have a disciplinary action, and of course, which everybody has to disclose, whether or not they've even had a criminal record.
So we're talking about like those 26 magical questions. Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Yes.
Those magic questions.
Yes, they are. They are. Now, we know they're supposed to disclose it. Here's the thing, though. All right. Hospitals and other healthcare facilities really don't always dig deep, and they really need to. And I know sometimes we're understaffed, but the reality is a doctor can conveniently leave out major red flags by not fully completing their credentialing application and then not answering those disclosure questions truthfully.
And, really, because I know when I was in the hospitals and the surgery centers, I'm on the other side now, but you need to also provide some sentences with it, right? You don't just check yes, right? You have to give something else, don't you? Tell me, what is that?
Right. So everybody's disclosure questions are all, the verbiage is a little bit different. Some are like all yeses, all nos. Some are like some yeses, some no. So they do have to read the question. But usually is like, okay, if you answered no to all of these, but you answered yes to one, you have to provide additional documentation to go along with the application. Okay. But see, here's the problem, right? So the problem is doctors are really busy, right? And we want them to see patients, right? So what happens is, guess who's filling out the applications?
Who? Not the doctor?
No. See, sometimes they have their assistants fill it out and then they just say, oh, here's my CV. Go ahead and fill it out because I'm tired of putting where I went to med school 26 times, right?
True, yeah.
And then on top of that, the CV that they give them is not in a month-year format. Alert. Doctors, please have your CVs.
Has to have it in month year.
Yes, month year, doctors, please. We need to account for every month. So They have CVs that don't have this month-year format. It barely has anything listed on there. And then they don't even have the full work history. Some doctors' CVs have like where they worked and not where they were affiliated, or it has where they were affiliated and not where they worked. Or sometimes they work for the hospital, so they think it's the same thing, but they're really part of the medical group.
Exactly.
So, yeah. And then some CVs don't have every single affiliation, or they'll list the hospitals and not the surgery centers. So it can be
their fellowships, their teaching engagements, the articles, and no work history. You're like, I need more.
Exactly. So this is a way that they can somehow unintentionally hide their red flags. So they want the help, right? To fill out all of that stuff.
I'm glad we're diving into this today, Nylene.
Yeah, absolutely. Because sometimes they don't do it on purpose, right? So that's why we are nice. We tell a doctor, hey, maybe you forgot this, but we're going to have some PSAs at the end to make sure that doctors, really pay attention, because these are legal documents.
Exactly. And med staff professionals too. I mean, the seasoned ones know this, the certified ones know this, but the new people coming into our field, they have to realize how important this process is, Nylene. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And then after you get that application and you've compared it and you've verified it, the most important thing is, docs, if you want to have them fill out your schooling and your name and your birthday and your social, that's fine. But please, those disclosure questions, make sure it's you who is signing it, you who is reading it, you who is initialing the answers to that, because your assistant is not going to know about the malpractice case. 20 years ago or 15 years ago, when maybe they were, 5 years old. The other thing is medical staff professionals. Of course, we all know we have to check the National Practitioner Data Bank. We've got to check that NPDB and do thorough background checks.
One of the things that I find happens, Nylene, is, it's like a staffing agency is hiring these doctors, these providers, and then they aren't allowed access into the NPDB. So they can't even, because they don't hire or fall under the different categories.
That is correct.
And
but they can ask the doctor, but they can ask the doctor to perform a self-query.
Yes, the self-query.
Yes. Doctors are entitled to perform a self-query, and it can be part of the pre-credentialing checklist
process. Yeah, right? They got to do that. Supply your driver's license and your self-query, right?
Correct. Yes. Absolutely. Why not? So anyway,
we got off on a tangent.
Sorry, guys. We do got to get to the tea. So let's talk a little bit, though, about this NPDB and who's reporting and what is being reported really quickly. Yeah. So the NPDB is a U.S. government database that is going to collect and store information about healthcare practitioners. Patients, y'all don't have access to this, so I'm just letting you know, this is when you have to have the faith in the medical staff office in your facilities.
Yeah.
But it is used to track disciplinary actions, malpractice payments, and then other certain negative actions taken against healthcare providers to protect their patients and ensure quality of care. So the first case, it's the famous case that everybody has known. Yes, the famous. And if you haven't listened to the other podcasts out there, I'm sure you've watched the Peacock special, but let's talk about Dr. Death. So this guy was a neurosurgeon who botched over 30 spinal surgeries that left patients paralyzed, in chronic pain, and even dead. Basically,
in the great state of Texas, mind you.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
At
Texas.
One of the most popular hospitals ever.
Mm-hmm. And he basically criminalized the idea of practicing medicine.
I like how you said that, Nylene. He criminalized it. Yes,
because the doctors are just practicing, guys. And the doctors are just practicing.
He tainted trust, right? I mean, that's what he did. Yeah,
he did. He took that to a whole nother level.
He did. Yeah.
But the problem is the hospitals kept hiring him, right? He moved to Texas, where he started practicing as a neurosurgeon. And then he was known because guess what he did? He did aggressive marketing. He plumped up his resume, but behind the scenes, everything was going wrong. So that is one way that doctors can hide and kind of obscure those red flags because, oh, well, he has this great ad on TV, right? Or his Google reviews are 5 stars.
So what you're saying is if a doctor comes in like that, maybe we should just do a little extra checking if they're extra marketing or extra fluffing. Is that what you're saying? I mean, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. And then another way that doctors can hide red flags is, like you said, that extra stuff, right? Extra stuff that they don't need to be doing. And his surgeries were described as incompetent and reckless. And in one case, a patient was left permanently paralyzed when he operated on her spine. And then another woman died because of complications. And despite these incidents, he was able to perform the surgeries without being fully investigated. And
they had said that, because I've seen the documentaries and I, of course, studied this case. And they said that even some of the doctors left the surgery questioning his techniques. And so when we go to our PSA section, right, I'm just going to say it right now for doctors, PSA. If you are leaving a surgery and questioning somebody's techniques, go to the credentialing office. Go find the medical director. I mean, right, Nylene? Have a conversation. I mean, I feel like it would save many patients.
Absolutely. And, shout out to the nurse. So one of the nurses did say something and did
finally,
Yeah, because they were like, this is crazy. This doesn't happen. Yeah. You're not supposed to do that. So
and he didn't, even know different vertebrae and different, they're going in for one reason. They're taking out other things. Oh, she don't need that. Don't take nothing out of me, Nylene. Don't take nothing out.
Exactly. And so the thing is he would get a complaint and then he would leave. So it was a voluntary resignation. So since it was voluntary, you don't have to report that.
Yeah, you're leaving, you're moving. Your life is getting better. You're going in a different direction.
Exactly. So that's how he fell through the cracks because he just said, oh, this hospital doesn't like me. I'm just going to leave anyway. I got another job anyway. So even if the hospitals wanted to do something, he didn't allow enough time for the actual investigation and complaint and committee review, because the doctor has to have privileges in order to continue. If he already resigned, then what are you going to do? So it's a huge loophole problem we really got to talk about.
Yeah, we need to talk about it. I'm glad we're doing this episode today.
Yeah, so what ended up happening is at least the other doctor, finally, after he was being fired multiple times, his practices went unpunished until finally actual doctors and then patients started saying, there's something wrong. Yeah. So still, it took years from when he started practicing to when finally in 2013, his license was finally revoked, but the damage was already done.
Yeah, nobody wants to complain and, harm a doctor's reputation.
Right.
If they're not sure.
Especially a neurosurgeon.
Especially a neurosurgeon, Eileen. And so you think about that. I don't want to make a mistake and say somebody's doing something wrong. But ultimately, it's about the patient. Like you said, we're practicing here. And so if it don't look like a good practice session has happened, I feel like we should, be talking to our credentialing office.
But look at this timeline. You're talking about 2013, his license was revoked.
Years.
He didn't get officially revoked. His license was, but nothing was 100% done
no,
until
when it criminally, right? Yeah.
Yes, until 2017 is when it was officially everything was done, completely revoked forever. He was convicted of the charges in 2017. Everything was done and he went to prison for his crimes. So let's just summarize this as far as the whole red flag situation. So instead of reporting him to authorities, the hospitals let him resign quietly. And he didn't disclose this. He didn't disclose that this happened to his other facilities. And if he was an employee and they fired him, it can just be considered the administrative action. So there's no need to report because they could just say, oh, there was budget cuts. We didn't need this neurosurgeon. He wasn't busy enough. He doesn't fit our schedule.
He was expensive.
He was expensive, whatever they could say. And the result was the next hospital had no clue because he didn't disclose it. Maybe that other hospital didn't do the employment check, or maybe he was just self-employed. Who's going to verify? His secretary that he's paying? Yeah, he worked here, Do you have any issues? No. And then he was allowed to keep practicing until it was too late.
I mean, to be honest, it's just real kicker. He could have been stopped years. You think, and it's again that unfortunately, Texas Medical Board, right? Because we've had some other cases coming out of the Texas Medical Board too. And we have to think, is it, something where the medical board should just put a pause? Give us a 30-day pause from practicing medicine. Let us look at everything that's coming out and see if this doctor's safe. Because years earlier, if the credentialing teams or the medical boards would have just put a little pause, if they just would have stopped for a second and look at what he was doing, they could have saved so many patients. Right. And that's really what we're talking about today.
Right. So let's expand a little more as to why this actually happens, because you'd think that the medical boards would be the first to say, hey, this provider has a serious issue. Let's investigate.
Yeah, I know. Because that's what they're there for. It's a board of doctors and professionals that are supposed to be looking at the practice of medicine. Right. And if anything goes that is adverse to that, they're supposed to investigate that, right? I mean, because a lot of people don't understand what a board is, They think, the board certification.
No, it's not board certification. And we're not talking about Yeah. And there's a different definitions for the word board. What we're talking about is the actual licensing board of the state that handles their actual licenses, because there's
they call it a board anytime it's a group of people making a decision. And at the board level of a medical board, it is a group of people. It's not just, Jack is up there ruling over all the doctors, right? Right, Nylene? You explain that to the people.
Exactly. Yes, you said it perfectly. In this case, we're talking about not the board or the group of people that make the decision for the hospital or their board certifications for their, specialty. We're talking about the state that they're actually practicing, that has granted them the license. So, girl, let's get into some other juicy story.
Okay.
About a red flag.
Take me there. I'm always ready.
Yes. So let's talk about the psychiatrist who kept moving.
Oh, Lord.
Again, red flags, how easily it can go through. So there was a case of a psychiatrist who had multiple complaints for sexual misconduct with patients.
No, a psychiatrist, he's not even supposed to touch the patients.
Girl, but they'd be laying on that couch. So I don't know what they're doing.
Not even laying on the couch. Do the people still lay on the couch? That's my question. I don't need to undress into the robe for these doctors.
Yeah. So anyway, this psychiatrist moved around, and when the hospitals got wind of something fishy going on, they just went up to him and said, hey, doc, you're really not a good fit, and I really think you should resign. And so he kind of got the wink, wink, right? Because if a doctor, again, voluntarily resigns, I don't have to report to the debtor bank then, because it was a voluntary administrative action. He left, he moved to another state. So he would move to another state and then just apply for a new medical license. So he was never officially disciplined, and there was never a record of his behavior. So guess what he did? He did it again.
How does somebody like this get multiple job offers, though? How does he get the opportunity to do it again?
The thing is they just keep moving, and so there's nothing to check them off. There's nothing.
It seems like the system is designed, I hate to say this, but to protect the doctor and not the patient, Nylene.
Yeah, that's what it does seem like, right? They are allowed a lot more wiggle room than many other specialties and many other areas and many other professionals,
That's what it seems like.
Yeah. So what happens then when they finally get caught?
I don't know. I guess, in some cases, nothing, right? I mean, some providers are allowed, like you said, to quietly resign. I mean, that's what Dr. Death did over and over again. And then some get reported to the NPDB. But Nylene, I mean, isn't it only if the hospital decides to report? Because can anybody else report to the NPDB? Can I, as a patient that got my spinal ripped out and I can't walk anymore, can I make a report to the NPDB, Nylene?
This episode of Credentialing Chronicles is sponsored by Advanced Quality Compliance, your white glove credentialing crew. We get it. One person doing the work of 5, audit season looming, files all over the place. AQC steps in with expert hands and calm minds, digitizing your chaos, handling the details, and keeping you audit ready 24/7. Think less stress, more success with a touch of luxury. No stress, no mess, just AQC white glove service. Visit aqccvo.com to get started.
No, what you can do though is you can appeal to the board of the state.
Okay, so it would be the board I talked to.
Yes, or the hospital, or the facility, the surgery center, the medical practice, something like that. Those are the ones that you're
really,
gonna have.
some go years without consequences, is what you're saying. You know, because things happen, and then the patient, and so until really something major happens, right? Is that what you're saying to me? Explain me.
Until something really major happens, yeah. Which is
Eileen, that's kind of sad.
Yeah. So you want to talk about something major happening? Let me tell you another story.
Because I'm kind of sad now. You're really like, whoa, what do we do? We need to. I'm glad we're talking about this because again, the more people are educated, right, then the more that this comes out into the public. And maybe, you know, we could be the catalyst for some positive change out there, Nylene.
Well, let me tell you about this ER doctor.
Another ER doctor. Another one.
Sorry, guys. We love you, ER doctors.
We love the ER doctors. I mean, we do love the good ones. We only talk about what, Nylene? The bad... What do you call them?
Exactly. Yes. No, the bad apples. No, we don't want to talk about the good. Well, we don't want to put bad on everybody, right?
No, but it's anyway, only the ones that are doing things like this that we want to bring out to the public forum and talk about.
So this ER doctor had a serious opioid addiction.
That's the serious one, isn't it? That's the addictive, right? Is that like a heroin one or something, right?
Well, not heroin, but I mean, just opioids. Okay. So he was caught stealing the drugs from the hospital because, as we know, there's crash carts, there's medications, you know, available.
Yeah, but definitely not heroin at the hospital. So yeah, that's why you said opioids. Yeah, I get it now. Yeah.
So he was doing it at the hospital. So
no.
Yes, and then the board found out about it, right?
Okay,
so
the state
thing,
board,
right?
Okay.
Yeah. But you know what they did? They let him enter rehab privately. They let him keep his medical license. And then they let him return to work without any public record. And then you know what happened a year later?
I'm scared to ask. Did they tell the people around him to kind of supervise? Maybe the medical director of the hospital? Did he get any hands out?
I don't know what the hospital did, but he relapsed. And guess what? He ended up overdosing in the ER while he was on duty.
No. Oh my God, I just can't believe it. I just want to know all the juicy details. You know, Nylene, you got to come with all of my juicy details. I need it. I need the details. Nylene said, look, I was just shocked that he fainted in the ER, right, Nylene?
I'm still shocked that he died while he was working. Like,
now he died.
Is that the definition? He died overdosed in the ER.
Oh, well, usually overdose, they bring the people back, but he died. Like, he is dead now.
Like, he's dead.
Oh, Nylene, you brought us a real one today. Okay, yeah. At that point, I'd probably start researching too, right?
And the thing is, the patients had no idea that they were being treated by someone who was a complete walking liability in this ER.
Oh, Nylene, you have given us a mess today. I mean, what are you telling all of us? We've talked about the psychiatrist, the ER doctor. I mean, just what's the solution? I mean, that's what we got to ask, right? Because we can't focus on the problem. We got to say, Nylene, how do we stop this from happening? I mean, I know you are with the leaders of the healthcare industry all the time talking about how to make things better. So what have you guys talked about? Let us know, because we need to know.
Well, you know, we really need stronger reporting laws, and I just don't know how to enforce it because people always find the loopholes again because they allow these quiet resignations, or the doctors themselves, the providers, practitioners, PAs, nurse practitioners, they'll find ways around it. Or, you know, at the end of the day, sometimes they try to comply, like they'll go to rehab, they'll do the testing. Oh, I have a crazy case. I can't mention it, but people, they try to do it, right?
It's for another episode, Nylene. Are you telling them to stay tuned?
I'm just trying to remember our disclosure. Like, okay, I'm not going to talk about people I know.
No names.
No names. So, we just have to know we have to report to the NPDB.
Yeah. And I think what if, I'm just going to say it today. Why don't we implement something in healthcare? See something, say something. I see that all the time on the subways, in the buses. I feel like we need to have signs like that all around healthcare institutions. If you see something, say something.
If your doctor smells like alcohol, bring it out. He shouldn't be smelling like that.
Yeah. If he's hanging there and he can't talk and speech is slurred, I feel like, talk to the nurse manager. Ma'am, I'm sorry. Can you look at the doctor? Can you guys find me another ER doctor, right?
Right. And then we want better board investigations. The board shouldn't take 4 years to take an action.
I know. But how do we fix that, Eileen? How do we do that?
I don't know.
Just one
suggestion.
I don't know.
And with more budget cuts coming in the government, I don't know what we're going to do.
Maybe one board member is listening us today. What do we just give them a little piece of advice?
Take it seriously, please. Hurry up.
Yes. If something comes past your desk, right? If something comes past your desk, please. Yeah, take it seriously. Yeah.
And then we need transparency for patients. We want to educate people. Go to your board website, check these doctors' licenses, make it easy for patients to see. And unfortunately, we are in the business of having to educate ourselves for many, many things. We have to educate ourselves on the medicines because the medicines, if you look at the ads, everything is great. Everything is perfect. This medicine's going to help you, right? But at least the drugs at the end give you that, you can die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
You can see the doctor, but
you got to slow it down. Yeah.
You got to slow it down. So you want to see the doctor, but I'm going to tell you the little small letters in the bottom says, but please, verify this doctor. Talk to him. Don't just go by the, wonderful ads that he has on his website or something,
Yeah. Look him up. Yeah, exactly. When they look him up on Google, it should say something. This doctor has, it should be a little, something great, right? He has so many awards, or, he has so many awards. He was found convicted of a DUI in 2021.
I don't know.
But he has overcame it. He has overcame it. He's doing wonderful now. Go see this doctor. That's a real Google review.
I don't see that happening. I don't think
you don't see that happen. Okay, and I'm going to believe you.
Yeah, no, I don't see that happening. But as a PSA for the patients,
definitely,
really do your research, and then really hospitals and surgery centers, particularly because
MSPs,
my last few years, I've spent it in the surgery center world, which has led me to really yell from the top of the mountains that please, surgery centers, run background checks on your doctors.
Yes.
And verify everything, A lot of them will just say, and a lot of surgery centers will just say, oh, well, they have privileges at this hospital, so they must be okay. We can't do that. We can't do that.
That's why everybody has their own credentialing process. We can't.
And that's why accrediting body files. Exactly. That's why you can't share them. And that's why each accrediting body has the requirements that it has, because you have to run your own checks. You have to double check yourself.
If Susie was over at ABC Hospital, she was having a bad day and said, oh, I just forgot to run the doctor's background check, and sent the file over there, and you think this doctor's great. And then, he comes up with all these things on his background check because you did run the background check. You would just take Susie's file and, have this doctor a bad apple, a bad actor. But I was just going to say, before we wrap up, let's take a moment to shout out the credentialing professionals, as always, Eileen, the compliance teams, the medical staff who actually do the work to keep their patients safe, right? I mean, that's the big thing.
Absolutely. They are the real MVPs of healthcare, girl. Mm-hmm. They really, really are. So let's finish up with the PSAs. Let's wrap up. Let's reiterate the PSAs that we have for this episode.
Today it's important.
Like doctors. Okay. Love y'all. Really respect what you do. I could never be a doctor, but
never.
Complete your own applications. Okay.
Yeah.
If you want to get somebody to help you fill out the top, But please ensure any legal questions, any disclosure questions, ensure that you read every line, that you read every attestation question, because you are the one that is liable for what is on the application and what is not on that application, not your assistant or whoever helped you fill it out. If you're a patient, do your research. That's your PSA. Like, look up your provider on your state medical board website and ask the hospitals about their credentialing process. Ask the doctors that you see, like, do you have any malpractice suits? You know, the doctor can always say no, but the reality is keep it open, stay diligent, you know, be on top of what's going on and try not to let anything slide, you know?
And if you work in credentialing, stay diligent, right? Keep investigating. Like you said, let me know your thoughts. We're excited about this. There's so much more to talk about. Send us a message on Instagram at Cred Chronicles or email us at credentialing@credentialingchronicles.com.
Yes, and if you want to check your own doctor's background, we're going to drop some links in the show notes.
That's it for today's episode of Credentialing Chronicles. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time, where we'll expose another shocking reality in the world of medical credentialing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Whoo, that was a lot of tea. Who knew doctors had more drama than reality TV?
And if you think that was wild, just wait till next week. We've got more stories, more scandals, and more credentialing chaos coming your way.
Hit that follow button, and don't forget, just because they have an MD doesn't mean they have a clean record.
See you next time on Credentialing Chronicles. Stay credentialed, not canceled.